Hi, Stephen here from Sound of a Nation Wave, and this is the review of last month's January's month ahead spread. And I have it laid out here in front of me. And we're just going to do a quick review of it, and also, as usual, going to do a review of the daily draws through the month and anything that we want to highlight. So, just to recap the month ahead spread for last month, for what we leave behind, we have the Queen of Cups. What we take forward, we have the Knight of Pentacles. The external focus was the Knight of Cups, and the inner focus was the Ace of Pentacles, and the general energy of the month was the Hierophant. So, what we leave behind, the Queen of Cups. I think we had a bit of a discussion about this as to what does that mean when we leave behind the energy of the Queen of Cups, and I think it's the key here is perhaps we're sort of not we're leaving behind being motivated through emotion and reacting through emotion. Not that we don't work on our emotions, not that we're not in touch with our emotions, but we're not too heavily focused on how we feel. Yes, we take care of ourselves, which is why why leaving behind the Queen of Cups was a little bit sort of confusing to be honest, because you don't want to leave that behind. But I think it's more the sensitivity, emotional sensitivity, being oversensitive, taking it to an extreme, and being careful not to react out of sensitive emotions, and react impulsively from that way. What we take forward was the Knight of Pentacles, which is a more practically minded sort of action, taking the practical steps, but detailed steps, deliberate steps, careful, not rushing. Whereas perhaps our emotions would want us to speed things up. We're taking a more considered, rational, more attention to detail and more focused, deliberate sort of steps. I'm not trying to rush too much, taking little steps forward rather than trying to make too many great strides and getting into situations we could have avoided. So I think that's what those two cards were about. And the external focus was the Knight of Cups, which is what steps we're going to make new connections, to follow our heart. What do we actually desire? What is it that our emotions actually do need? And what practical steps can we take to go in search of that? We're going in perhaps searching for some new emotional state or connection that takes us away from the oversensitivity, that brings us a bit more of the emotional sort of maturity, perhaps, or growth. And the inner focus again was a Pentacles, was a Ace of Pentacles. So we've got Cups, Pentacles, Cups, Pentacles. It's that sort of two-sided coin, isn't it? You got the emotions, and then you got the almost like the practicality as the intangible, and then this is the tangible. You've got those two aspects that you're perhaps trying to balance somehow. The Ace of Pentacles, a new state of being, perhaps, that we're focusing on inwardly, not being the same as we're bringing in some of that personal growth and development. So we're not acting out of sensitivity of emotion, that we're learning to bring a bit of control to those emotions, a bit of putting the reins in a little, not suppressing, but not letting them get out of hand. Almost veering from a Queen of Cups going towards a King of Cups, if anything. So that's what the way I took it. It may have been a different aspect to you. I have felt emotions during the month, but I have made an effort to keep them in check and not to let them overwhelm me, being focusing on the practical of day-to-day life, and that's got me through January. And January has seemed a very long month, to be honest with you, and I'm glad that we've got that behind us, and I feel that I've come out of it in a sense of a new beginning, a new start, and a new state of being as well. I feel that I've changed during this month, and I can see the beginnings of that change being outworked into my daily life. And the general engineer of the month, the Hierophant, in doing so, I've learnt a lot about myself and my spiritual practice and my spiritual being and power. I've found some new keys in order to open up. I've been inspired to keep learning and to recognize I have learnt some things even without realizing, through experience, through life itself, and how the spiritual dynamics of been working in the everyday sort of existence of and the journey of life. It's been nearly I caught the camera. Right. So that, I believe, is what the Hierophant was about: learning about ourselves and how the spiritual path, maybe even deepening our spiritual path and gaining a deeper connection. And maybe that's part of the quest that the Knight of Cups was talking about, that we're searching for that deeper, more involved a connection that comes through learning through situations and experiences that we come across every day, and how we get through them can be teaching experiences if we are open to learning from them, even when things don't go to plan, even when perhaps we feel that we've messed up. What did we learn from it? And we can learn something important from, you say you learn from your mistakes. And so, mistakes are mistakes. They're not necessarily failures. We may think of mistakes as failures, but no, mistakes can be teaching tools. It's a human quality that we make mistakes. It's what we do with those mistakes that's the difference. If we don't learn from them, then that's something we failed to do. But the mistake itself is not a failure. So don't be afraid to make mistakes as well. As long as we can learn from them, try not to sort of like recklessly think, it doesn't matter if I make a mistake. We don't deliberately make mistakes. But if, in the general day-to-day sort of journey, we do make mistakes, then, and we learn from them, then that's a success. And we can grow through that, and that's a learning experience. And to me, that's encompassed what January was all about, at least for me. So for me, this spread, as I've just described it, and I believe it was similar to how I described it when we first did it. I haven't actually had chance to I normally do look at what I said about it initially, but maybe I will do that afterwards, because maybe my interpretation has changed through the experience of the month. Now I can see, looking back, that maybe how I've described it right now is actually what it was trying to say all along. And maybe my initial interpretation, if it is a bit different, was just my first impressions, but I hadn't quite sat with it, I hadn't experienced it, and some of what I said might not have quite, I might have misheard what the cards were trying to say. I know there was a bit of, it wasn't an easy spread, I believe, when it came out, particularly with this Queen of Cups. But I like my take on it that I've just said, and it seems to ring true, at least for me. If you have a different interpretation, or if that's what your experience was, then that's great. We each interact with the general message in different ways, and it applies to our individual lives in different ways. But that's what I believe this spread was all about. So now we normally look at the draws for January. And we usually start, and then so that's what we'll do. We will start with looking at how many times a sword card came out, a wands card came out, cups card came out, a pentacles card came out, or a major card came out. And the answer to that was that we had a sword. There isn't a sword card here, so but a sword card came out 5 times. A wands card came out 5 times. We don't have a wands card either. It's these cups and pentacles and a major. So a cups card came out 4 times. A pentacles card came out 4 times, which is interesting. And a major card, like the Hierophant here, came out 13 times. So the majority was a major card, the spiritual dynamics that we were learning, tied in with practicalities and how to bring it into daily life, I feel. So that sort of did fit with that. Now, did any of these cards, we always look to see if any of these cards come out during the month of January in the daily draws. And surprisingly, only one of them came out. We had a couple of we had a Queen of Swords twice, but of course, so we had some Queen energy, but that was about it on that. We didn't have any Knights come out, strangely enough. So those 2 didn't come out. We didn't have the Hierophant come out, but we had 13 majors. And what I would say is that although the Hierophant didn't come out, we had the Hermit and High Priestess a couple of times each. So we had some spiritual dimension to that with a major card. We had like the Hermit drawing aside, getting that enlightenment, High Priestess sort of connecting with that intuitive inner voice. We had that a couple of times each. So to me, we were learning about that. So that does sort of tie in with that a little bit. But the one card that did come out was this card, the Inner Focus card, which was the Ace of Pentacles. This came out once. This came out during the daily draws on day 5. And that was reminding us about inner focus, about new beginning, a new state of being. And that was inwardly through dealing with various issues. And we were dealing with our inner response to things, starting afresh and perhaps gaining a new perspective to practically work with that. And that, as I say, did echo, I think, what the major thrust. I think this was the major thrust of the spread, and the other cards were feeding into that. These are what was involved in this inner focus. These were more or less talking about what this new thing in the inner focus was going to be about, and that was my experience in the daily draws. So that to me was the how the month went. I hope you all had a good month. As I said, it did seem to drag a bit, but January tends to do that for me. I don't know about you, and I'm glad we've got through it. And now we can go forward into February and see what that month has in store. And of course, the next thing I will do is the month ahead spread for February, and then we'll have the daily draws obviously each day, and then at the end of the month we will look back at that. But as far as the January is concerned, that's it. I feel that's all I feel that we need to talk about. And thank you for listening. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all again very soon. Okay, bye bye.